So don't tell Nintendo, but there's this thing that I like to do with every new console that I get, and that is to play Super Mario Brothers 3, as I'm doing here with the Switch 2 that I got not too long ago. The reason I'm saying don't tell Nintendo is because I also have a ROM of the Super Mario Brothers 3 game that I got from a cartridge, this cartridge right here. And it is something that brings me a lot of good memories because when I was a kid, I must have been about 8 or 9 years old when the Super Mario Brothers 3 game came out, and I didn't get it here in the US. Or rather, I did get the US, I did get it here in the US, but I didn't get the US version. What ended up happening was that my dad was visiting, and every time he visited, as mom and dad were divorced, every time he visited, we'd go to the swap meets and to buy things, and he would usually buy me toys or things that I wanted, things that I needed, etc. He was, he was the fun dad. And one day we went to a swap meet in El Paso, Texas, and a lady had the Super Mario Brothers 3 game playing over and over the intro screen, playing over and over on an old CRT television. And she was selling the cartridge. She was selling a cartridge for the Famicom system. I almost fell there, wow. She was selling the Famicom system cartridge, and it was the Japanese version. And she was also selling an adapter for it for the Nintendo, for the NES. And I begged and pleaded with my dad to buy it for me. She was selling it at $50, and $50 back then is about $120 today. So he agreed to buy it for me if I did some chores and, kept my grades up, etc., which I did. I didn't get bad grades. I'm a big nerd. And I took it home and I couldn't wait to play it. I really, really, really wanted to play it. And my cousins had an NES, so I went over to their place and brought it over. And here it had all the wording underneath everything. It was in Japanese. And none of us understood a thing it said. But we knew that it was Super Mario Brothers 3, and I had read and I had shared with them that on Nintendo Power, the magazine, they had been talking that Super Mario Brothers 3 was coming. So we played it. I think we broke a record for ourselves for how long we stayed awake to play it. We played it for a good 24 hours or so. And since then, of course, I've gotten, like I said, I got the cartridge, and I got the Super Mario Brothers 3 NES cartridge, and I dumped the ROM. And so when I get a new console, I just put it in there and I play it, and that's kind of like a little ritual that I have. And it just reminds me of that day with my dad, because it wasn't the only time that he bought me something that I wanted and didn't necessarily need. And it wasn't the first time that he spent a lot of money on that. And that's been the story with my dad throughout my entire life, that he has always provided financial support. Mom has been the financial, but mom has been more of the emotional and intellectual support. And so, if you're divorced, you know how it is. The mom or the dad are the ones who are supportive and caring, and the other one is usually the physical and uncaring. And you're lucky if you get a good mix between the two parents. But my relationship with my dad was pretty bad for a while there when I was a teenager, because you get to the teenage years as a boy and you want to challenge the authority of the father. And I had a different personality than my dad. He was into cars and fixing things, which I inherited. I do some fixing and some tinkering, but I am more scientific. I am a scientist. I'm a doctor of public health, for crying out loud. And he grew up with a developmental delay because of a very bad head injury that he had when he was a kid. So while he is a phenomenal car mechanic and a phenomenal engineer when it comes to things that are mechanical, other things, abstract concepts, are really, really hard for him because of that injury. But nevertheless, he loved me, and his way of showing it was to get me the things that I needed and the things that I wanted. And it wasn't so much, the affection that you see from a father, like I see myself now with my daughter. And of course, it's different when you have a daughter and you're a father, right? Or if she were a boy, I would likely treat her differently. I'm not ashamed in saying that. It's just a fact. But I do wonder, how many times I needed a hug, how many times I needed a kiss on the forehead, a pat on the back, that I had done something well or that I needed support. And he just couldn't do that because culturally in Mexico, machismo, we don't show emotion. We don't cry. Real men don't cry. And that was a problem with that. But nevertheless, he did get me the Super Mario Brothers 3, and that led to many, many, many days of enjoyment, of loving the game and falling in love with it, falling in love with the entire idea of video games. It started with the Atari. If you have seen my previous videos, it started with the Atari that I would borrow from my uncle, my dad's brother. And then it continued into the Nintendo era and Sega games that my cousins had, because I never had Sega. I always had Nintendo products. And then it continued into Xbox later on, that I played with my friends, and PlayStation that I played with my brother. And now with my little sister, we play Steam games. We play things like Stray or Hollow Knight. And my daughter has picked up Roblox and Minecraft, and we sometimes play it, and I have it loaded on this in case she wants to play it. And she's been playing Big Kitty Little City. So there's something about video games that just reminds me of better days and better times, and reminds me of my dad a lot. And he's very far away, and I'm over here thanking him for his sacrifices and his work, so that I could do the work that I do now. So now you know a little bit more about me, a little bit more about my relationship with my dad. And if you saw the video about mom taking me to the Toys R Us to buy the NES, you know a little bit more about my relationship with my mother. So with that, thank you so much for your time. I hope to talk to you sometime soon. Take care. Yeah.